Very exciting building.
We like to think so.
And a very exciting precinct, I should say. I've been through the precinct quite a few times. I guess my question is, what makes this building, what's the point of difference that this building has compared to its surrounds? And more importantly, what are the key points of difference that you sort of started off with in the brief?
Key points of difference. I think we probably have to go all the way back to the very beginning in terms of what we actually wanted out of it. We actually set the aspirations, and the aspiration was for a vertical urban campus, something that did innovate, that put student experience at the heart of everything that we do, and embedded sustainability. And really with that strong drive behind that, we've had a whole series of outcomes, design outcomes, operational outcomes, that have culminated in the Swanston Academic Building, what it's delivered. And it's very difficult, it's kind of a layering process. There are a few major things, but there are a whole multitude of maybe small issues that all add to the cumulative effect to a fantastic outcome. But really the student experience was at the centre. We found through our research, being a university, we found that traditionally that university education was quite transactional, that you would get students turning up, going to lectures which are front-facing, you're sitting in the audience, receiving information from the lecturer. And actually that's not the best way to learn. So what we actually did is we refer to them as flat floor group learning in the building, which actually allows people to work in groups and learn in groups with their peers. And we've actually then embedded areas within the building on each floor, they're called student portals, that actually the students own. It's their own space. It is backed up with high-speed wireless and actually a virtual desktop that up until about a year before we opened, it wasn't actually technically possible to deliver. It was the largest virtual desktop delivered in the Southern Hemisphere when it opened in 2012. And this enabled all of the students to be actually hosted off-site in a data centre. They could access all of their software. And actually, the point of difference is the energy and the engagement and the activation that the building has now. It is embraced by the students. It is their building. Each student portal has its own identity. It gives it the collegiate experience. And with the growth of online content, really what you want to do is actually embed student experience within learning and teaching to enable those people to actually want to come to university. You could essentially get a degree probably staying in your own bedroom, working off your laptop, but we don't think that's the best way of learning.
I'm interested, Keven, in 4.5 years ago, you had an idea that you wanted to build this building and you wanted to create this learning environment that was future-proof because it wasn't going to be delivered for some years after that. I'm curious to know how successful that's been, if your expectations of how students would learn 4 or 5 years down the track has actually come true.
In short answer would be yes, I think we have achieved that. But of course, it's a moment in time. We're always now thinking about actually what the next development should be. But sometimes it was taking it back to more simple roots. And I think people think about innovation, they tend to focus on technology and the new aspects. But actually, if you can focus back on the principles that you really need to deliver on, and layer initiatives upon initiatives, you actually really do embed those outcomes and get them at the end of the day.
Initially, in your development phase, were there other design solutions considered?
Yes. RMIT is a university of technology and design. We hold our public spaces and the public realm very dear to us, and we've got a very strong voice in design. That said, that I think what we did, And it's one of those alignment of the planets projects where you set the direction and you set the aspirations. You set the governance to always check that those aspirations are being followed, because at a big project you can get lost in the weeds. You pick the team, and you pick the team very carefully. And then you challenge the team as a client. To actually deliver something exceptional, you have to do something different. And it was challenging times at times, but I think all of the team, from the contractor, through the design team, through the project management team, through the client side, are just delighted with the outcome. And that's really that is the fulfillment of actually pulling all of those aspects together.
There's a number of unique sustainability outcomes. Which one would you say was the most unique?
Yes, sustainability. Again, that was one of our aspirations, and again, we would always go back to that. And it's a 5-star Green Star building, but for me, that's not really. That's just a way of checking. And there's a lot of technology involved, which I think is good. There's the connection back to the central plant, which is the chilled water. Basically, all the chilled water for the 35,000 square metre building is actually over the road on top of a 12-storey building in our main campus. We've got pipes actually going under Swanston Street, under the tram tracks, which was an interesting one to negotiate, which actually drives, I think it was 15% efficiency. We've got chill beams, we've got water capture, we've got all of those type of things. But I think it's the softer things that I'm probably more proud of around the sustainability. It's the fact that actually we did a timetable model, which at the very beginning, which actually reduced the space, the footprint of the building by 15%. We didn't have to build 15%. We built 15% less. We have to heat, cool 15% less. We actually connect the BMS with the timetabling system. So therefore, actually, we only actually heat or cool the rooms when we actually are using them. We actually embedded learning and teaching in this. We've actually still got research programs going on that are still measuring actually how the building is performing. And we actually try to talk to our students. We've got real data coming up in all of those student portals I mentioned earlier that tries to talk to the students about actually how the building is performing.
The stakeholder consultation process. I was interested that you've been able to successfully co-locate the academics in amongst all of the student areas. That must have been challenging.
Yes, certainly challenging. Universities are very consultative organisations. They're certainly not autocratic, and you need to take people on a journey with you. But really, once we and to be fair, it didn't hurt the fact that their existing conditions were not particularly great. But we actually took people out of offices into open plan. Not all, but some. We actually mixed all of the schools. The schools didn't have their own floors. So actually we developed that collegiality. Often with a large development like this, it gives you the opportunity for organisational change as well. And you have to accept that. And we accepted that quite early on, and we actually put ways of taking the staff with us on the journey. We kind of knew the students were already there. It was probably more of us oldies that needed to actually get helped along the way. So there was a lot of professional development, and there was a lot of aftercare as well, probably for about 6 months afterwards, and it's paid off very well indeed.
Excellent.